You know, the real magic of AI, the thing that makes it truly powerful, is when it can understand your world, your private data. That connection is what turns a general purpose tool into a personal, indispensable assistant. So we're going to explore a really powerful way to build these custom AI pipelines right on your own machine, keeping your data completely safe and totally under your control. So here's the game plan. We'll start with the big challenge, how to make AI aware of your personal stuff. Then we'll dive into a super high-performance tool called Embed Anything and see it handle both text and images. And finally, we'll tie it all together and talk about why running these pipelines locally is such a game changer for privacy and speed. All right, let's get into it. The fundamental issue with most big AI models is that they're trained on huge public datasets. This makes them experts on general knowledge, but they know absolutely nothing about your projects, your private files, or your unique business. They're basically a blank slate when it comes to you. So that's the million-dollar question, right? How do you bridge that gap? The goal is to let a powerful AI understand and reason about the information that's sitting right there on your own computer. And the solution? Well, it lies in a technique that is absolutely transforming how we use AI today. That technique is called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like giving an AI a library card to your private information. Instead of just relying on its built-in knowledge, it first looks up the relevant facts from your documents and then uses that specific context to give you a way more accurate and helpful answer. Now, for RAG to work, the AI has to be able to, well, understand your data. And this is done through something called an embedding. An embedding is basically a universal translator. It takes any piece of data, whether it's text, an image, or even audio, and turns it into a string of numbers, a vector. This vector captures the core meaning, letting the AI mathematically compare different pieces of info to see how they're related. So when you put it all together, the entire workflow is pretty straightforward. First, you ingest your private data, like a PDF. Then you create embeddings, turning all that content into those numerical vectors. You store those vectors in a special database. When you ask a question, your question also gets turned into a vector, and the system finds the most similar data chunks. Finally, that retrieved context gets handed to the AI model so it can generate a really precise, informed answer. Okay, now that we understand the process, let's look at a tool that's designed to make this whole thing incredibly fast and accessible. Embed Anything is a complete pipeline built from the ground up to handle this entire workflow locally and at top speed. A few things really make this tool stand out. First, it's super versatile. It handles everything from text to images. It's built in Rust, which means it is seriously fast. And this is huge. It's incredibly lightweight because it doesn't need heavy dependencies like the PyTorch framework. It's also modular, so it plugs into different vector databases, and it has this cool vector streaming feature that cuts down on latency. And the difference in architecture is just massive. A typical AI pipeline with all its heavy dependencies eats up a ton of memory. But the Embed Anything approach, being Rust-based and PyTorch-free, means a much, much smaller memory footprint. It also runs a concurrent workflow, which means it can process documents separately from the AI model's work to keep everything moving fast. All right, enough theory. The foundation is there, but a real-world example is what really shows off the power here. So let's walk through how this pipeline can query a private document. So the task is pretty simple. We've got a PDF stored locally, and it has some specific information inside. We're just going to ask a direct question and see if the system can find the exact answer inside that file. And it's a total success. The pipeline processes the document perfectly, finds the most relevant chunks of text that answer the question, and presents them with a high relevance score. It found exactly what we were looking for, pulling it straight from the source file. Now this right here demonstrates that efficiency we were talking about. The whole task was done using less than 262 megabytes of VRAM. That is an incredibly small memory footprint. It means you can run powerful analyses like this easily, even on a machine that doesn't have a high-end graphics card. But this technology is not just about text. Its real power comes from being multimodal, which is just a fancy way of saying it can understand and process different kinds of data, including images. Okay, for this next scenario, we've got a folder with a bunch of different images in it. The task is to use a simple text description to find one specific image out of that whole collection. And the query is as simple and natural as it gets. Photo of a man. The system takes this text, turns it into an embedding, and then compares that to the embeddings it already made for every single image in the directory. The result? It's pretty impressive. The pipeline correctly identifies the one image that best matches the text description and comes back with a really high similarity score. This just proves it can accurately connect the meaning of words to the visual content in a picture. So these demos are really cool, but the bigger picture here is even more important. Running these AI pipelines locally on your own machine gives you some huge advantages. When you run AI locally, you have complete control. You own the models, you own the data, period. Your sensitive information never has to be uploaded to some third-party service, which means you have total privacy. This approach also gives you super low latency. It's efficient with your computer's resources, and it gives you the versatility to handle any kind of data you want, all on your own terms. At the end of the day, that's the real takeaway. Tools and techniques like these are democratizing AI. They give you the power to build sophisticated, custom AI solutions that are private, efficient, and perfectly tailored to what you need. This puts you, not someone else, firmly in control of your data and your AI.